Welcome to my channel Deep Sleep Mission-DSM. As we begin, I would be delighted if you could share your location in the comments below. It's truly inspiring to witness how far this content travels and to connect with viewers from across the world. They say the worst part about waking up in a hospital is not knowing how you got there. But that's wrong. The worst part is when they let you leave, and something follows you home. Before I tell you what happened to me last Tuesday night in Portland General Hospital, I need you to do something. Look at your wrist right now, either one. See that bare skin? That empty space where a hospital bracelet would sit? Count yourself lucky, because once they put one on you, sometimes it never really comes off. If you're listening to this alone, in the dark, maybe turn on a light, and if you hear any beeping sounds while I tell this story, like a heart monitor, that's not part of the recording. The story begins now. The fluorescent lights in my apartment bathroom flickered as I stood there, scissors in my trembling hand, trying for the 20th time to cut through the pale blue plastic around my wrist. The hospital bracelet, the one they'd put on me 6 days ago when I'd gone to Portland General for what should have been a routine appendectomy. My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm 28 years old. I worked, as a night shift dispatcher for the Portland Fire Department. I tell you this because I need you to understand. I'm not someone who scares easily. I've talked people through house fires, car accidents, worse things. But this bracelet, the scissors slipped again, leaving another red mark on my wrist. The plastic wasn't even scratched. It had started simple enough. Tuesday night, around 11 p.m., I'd felt that familiar stabbing pain in my lower right abdomen. My roommate Maya drove me to the emergency room, waited with me through triage, held my hand when they confirmed it was appendicitis. Routine surgery, they said. You'll be home in 2 days, they said. The bracelet went on at 11:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because the nurse, a tired-looking woman named Beth, I had to print it twice, the first one smeared. "There we go," she'd said, snapping it around my wrist. "Don't worry, we'll cut this off when you're discharged." The surgery went fine. I woke up groggy but alive, spent 2 nights in room 314. And was discharged Thursday afternoon. That's when things got strange. "Let me get that bracelet off for you," the discharge nurse had said. Different nurse. Younger. She'd fumbled with the special scissors they use, the ones with the blunt tips, and frowned. "That's weird. These must be dull. Let me get another pair." She came back with 3 different scissors. None of them worked. The bracelet wouldn't cut. Must be a defective batch. She'd laughed nervously. Sometimes the plastic gets, I don't know, extra tough. You can cut it off at home with kitchen scissors or nail clippers. Whatever you have. I'd been too ready to leave to argue. Too eager to get back to my own bed, my own shower, my normal life. But here I was, 6 days later, and the bracelet remained, perfectly intact. The pale blue plastic had started to look different. In certain lights, sometimes I swore I could see something moving under the surface, like veins. But when I looked directly at it, nothing. The text on it was still clear. Chen, Sarah M. F28, allergy, penicillin, RM, 314. Dr. Morrison, Dr. Morrison. I'd never actually met him. My surgeon had been Dr. Patel, a cheerful woman who checked on me both mornings after surgery. But the bracelet said Dr. Morrison. I set the scissors down, my wrist throbbing from all the attempts. In the mirror, my reflection looked wrong. Tired, sure, but something else. My eyes kept drifting to the left, like they were trying to see something just outside my peripheral vision. That's when I heard it. Beep, 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 like a heart monitor, steady, rhythmic, coming from... I looked down at the bracelet. The sound was coming from the bracelet. No, That was impossible. Hospital bracelets don't make sounds, they're just plastic, printed plastic with basic information. They don't have speakers, or batteries, or... The beeping stopped. I grabbed my phone, typed, "Hospital bracelet won't come off" into Google. Nothing useful, just tips about using oil, or freezing it, or... Wait, one result, a Reddit post from 3 months ago, username throwaway 20,841. Title, "Anyone else have trouble removing their Portland General bracelet?" My hands shook as I clicked it. Had surgery at Portland Gen last month. Everything went fine, but I can't get this stupid bracelet off. Tried everything. Starting to freak me out because I swear it feels warm sometimes. And before you ask, yes, I've tried cutting it. Nothing works. Anyone else experience this? 14 comments. I scrolled through them. Which room were you in? Deleted user OP, please respond. What room number? Deleted user what room? Deleted user, if it was 3rd floor, DM me immediately. Deleted user. Every comment was deleted. Every username gone. Except for the last one. Posted just 2 days ago. Room 314. User Mike B1987. My throat went dry. That was my room. I clicked on Mike B1987's profile. One post, one comment. The comment on throwaway 20,841's post, and a post of his own from last week. Day 12, bracelet still on. The beeping comes every night now at 2:47 a.m. Always 2:47, exactly 1 hour after. Never mind, if you're reading this and you were in room 314, don't sleep alone. And whatever you do, don't answer when they call your name. I checked the time, 11:33 p.m. The bathroom felt smaller suddenly. The flickering light made shadows dance in the corners. I grabbed my phone, started to text Maya, then stopped. What would I even say? My hospital bracelet is beeping and strangers on Reddit are warning me about my room number. I needed air. I stumbled out of the bathroom, through my bedroom, into the living room. The windows were all closed, but somehow there was a draft. Cold. Medical cold. Like a hospital. The smell hit me next. Antiseptic. That specific mix of bleach and something else that only exists in hospitals. It was faint, but unmistakable. I looked at the bracelet again. Still there. Still impossible to remove, but now, in the dim light of my living room, I could see it clearly. The thing moving under the plastic. It wasn't my imagination. The plastic was pulsing. Subtly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. But not my heartbeat. I pressed my fingers to my neck, counted. My pulse was racing, probably 90 beats per minute. The bracelet pulsed slower, maybe 60. The heartbeat of someone calm, someone resting, someone sleeping. Or someone, no, I wouldn't think that, I couldn't. I grabbed my laptop, searched for anything about room 314 at Portland General. News articles, incident reports, anything. Most hospitals have some history, some stories, but I needed to know about that specific room. Found it. Buried in a local news archive from 8 years ago. Portland General investigates equipment malfunction. An investigation is underway at Portland General Hospital following an equipment malfunction in room 314 that resulted in the death of patient Michael Morrison. The 34-year-old was recovering from routine surgery when a heart monitor error led to Morrison. I looked at the bracelet. Dr. Morrison. No, it had to be a coincidence. Morrison was a common name. There were probably dozens of Dr. Morrisons in Portland. This was just beep, 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 2:47 a.m. How was it 2:47? I just checked and it was 11:33. That was... No, I looked at my phone. 2:47 a.m. I'd lost over 3 hours, just gone. The beeping continued, steady, insistent, and underneath it, barely audible, something else. Breathing. Not mine. The breathing was coming from the bracelet. I need you to understand something. I'm not crazy. I thought I was. For those first few days. Thought maybe the anesthesia had messed with my head, or the pain meds, or just the stress of surgery. But then I found the others. After that night, after losing 3 hours and hearing the breathing, I did what any rational person would do. I went back to the hospital. Portland General looked different in the harsh morning light. More normal, less threatening. Just a building full of sick people and tired workers. I walked through the automatic doors at 8 a.m. sharp, straight to the information desk. I need to have a bracelet removed. I told the volunteer, an elderly man with kind eyes. He smiled. Oh, discharge should have done that. Let me call someone from... No, I interrupted, holding up my wrist. I mean, they tried. It won't come off. I need, I don't know, someone from maintenance? Someone with better tools? His smile faltered. He looked at the bracelet, then at my face, then back at the bracelet. Room 314. Yes, why? Is that... Wait here. He picked up a phone, dialed an extension, spoke in hushed tones I couldn't make out. Within minutes, a security guard appeared. Young guy, probably mid-20s, with a concerned expression. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me. Am I in trouble? I just need the bracelet. Please, just come with me. He led me through corridors I remembered from my stay, past the cafeteria, past the gift shop, to an administrative wing I'd never seen. Knocked on a door marked Risk Management. A woman answered. 50s, graying hair pulled back, wearing a tired expression that suggested she'd had this conversation before. Another 314, the guard asked. She nodded, stepped aside to let me in. The office was small, cramped, filled with filing cabinets and the smell of old coffee. On her desk, a folder, thick, with a label that made my stomach drop. Room 314 incidents. Sit, she said, not unkindly. I'm Patricia Hoffman. I handle unusual situations for the hospital. Unusual like a bracelet that won't come off. She pulled out a form. When were you discharged? Thursday, 6 days ago. Have you experienced any phenomena? Phenomena? Unusual sounds, lost time, sensations of being watched, changes in temperature, electronic malfunctions? You know, I whispered. You know what's happening. Patricia sighed, rubbed her temples. Room 314 has a history. We've tried everything. New equipment, blessings, even had the room rebuilt completely in 2019. Nothing works. Sometimes, patients leave with more than they came in with. What does that mean? How much do you know about Michael Morrison? My blood ran cold. I found an article. He died. Equipment malfunction. That's the official story. The truth is, we don't know what happened. 1 minute he was stable, recovering from appendectomy, just like you. The next, every machine in the room went haywire. Alarms blaring, monitors showing impossible readings. And Michael was... She trailed off, pulled out another form. The bracelet won't come off. She continued. Because it's not really a bracelet anymore. It's a connection. To what? We're not sure. But every patient who's left 314 with one that won't remove, they all report the same things. The beeping, the lost time, and eventually... Eventually what? They come back. What do you mean they come back? The patients? No, the ones who didn't leave. I stared at her. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang. There are 12 of you, Patricia said softly. 12 living patients who've been in 314 since the Morrison incident. All with bracelets that won't come off. We tried to track you all, offer support, but the hospital's legal department. 12. I repeated. What happened to the others? 7 came back within the first month. Different complaints, chest pain, difficulty breathing, unexplained fever. We admitted them to different rooms, but somehow they all ended up back in 314. And then, they died, they're gone. The beds were empty in the morning. No record of discharge, no security footage, just gone. And the other 5? 3 stopped responding to our calls about a year ago. 1 moved out of state, claimed the phenomena stopped when she got far enough away. And 1, she pulled out a photo. A young man, maybe 30, holding up his wrist to show a pale blue bracelet. Marcus Williams had his appendix out 2 years ago. He figured out something we couldn't, how to live with it. I need to talk to him. He's very particular about contact, but she scribbled on a post-it. This is his coffee shop. He's there every morning at 6 a.m. Tell him Patricia sent you. And, Miss Chen? Yeah. Whatever you do, don't go back to room 314. No matter what you hear, no matter who calls your name. I left the hospital with more questions than answers. And a post-it with an address for a coffee shop called Grove Street Grounds. But first, I needed to understand something. I pulled out my phone, called the hospital's main number. Portland General Hospital. Hi, I'm trying to reach Dr. Morrison. He was my surgeon last week. I'm sorry, we don't have a Dr. Morrison on staff. Could you have the name wrong? No, it's on my... I looked at the bracelet. The name was still there, clear as day. Never mind, thank you. I drove home in silence. The bracelet pulsing against my wrist. Every red light seemed to last forever. Every shadow looked like a hospital corridor. And in the reflection of my rearview mirror, I kept seeing something that shouldn't be there. A figure in a hospital gown. Standing, watching, waiting. When I got home, Maya was in the kitchen. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. Sarah, you okay? You look... Maya? I held up my wrist. Can you read what this says? She squinted at the bracelet. Your name, your allergies, room number, and... That's weird. What? The doctor's name, it's all smudged, I can't read it. I looked down. Dr. Morrison, clear as ever. Maya, what time did I get home last night? Last night? Sarah, you've been in your room for 2 days. I knocked a few times, but you said you were sick. Are you sure you're... 2 days. I'd lost 2 days. The room started spinning. Maya's voice faded into static, and underneath it all, that steady beeping. Not from the bracelet this time. From inside my head. Beep, beep, beep. Sarah? Sarah. The last thing I remember before passing out was the smell, antiseptic, bleach, and something else. Something that smelled like a room where someone died 8 years ago. Grove Street Grounds sat tucked between a vintage bookstore and a dry cleaner. The kind of coffee shop that hipsters would call authentic, and everyone else would call old. I pushed through the door at 5:58 a.m. The bell above chiming with a sound that reminded me too much of a hospital call button. Marcus Williams wasn't hard to spot. He sat in the far corner, back to the wall, eyes on the door. Mid-30s, hollow cheeks, and wrapped around his wrist. A pale blue bracelet identical to mine. He nodded when he saw me. No surprise. Like he'd been expecting me. I ordered a black coffee I didn't want and sat across from him. Up close, I could see the exhaustion carved into his face. The kind that sleep couldn't fix. Day 10? He asked, not looking up from his own coffee. 11, Patricia Hoffman said. I know what Patricia said. She sends them all to me, the ones who survived the first week. He finally met my eyes. You're doing better than most. Still got color in your face, still fighting. How do I get it off? You don't. There has to be. You don't. His voice was firm but not unkind. "I've tried everything. Power tools, acid, even had a friend who works in a machine shop try to cut it with industrial equipment. Nearly took my hand off. Bracelet didn't even scratch." I slumped back. The coffee shop sounds, the espresso machine, the morning chatter. It all felt distant, muffled, like listening through water. "But you're still here," I said. 2 years later, you're alive. Existing isn't the same as living." He pulled up his sleeve. The skin around his bracelet was pale, almost translucent. I could see veins underneath. They looked wrong. Too dark, too prominent. "But yes, I'm still here. Want to know how?" I nodded. "Rules," he said. "Everything has rules, even this, especially this. Patricia didn't tell you the whole truth about room 314, about what happened there. She said Michael Morrison died, equipment malfunction." Marcus laughed, bitter, sharp. "Equipment malfunction. That's what they tell themselves. Makes it easier to sleep. The truth is, Michael Morrison didn't die in room 314. What? He died 3 days later, at home, after complaining about a bracelet that wouldn't come off." My coffee cup rattled against the saucer. I hadn't realized my hands were shaking. "The thing in room 314, it doesn't kill you there. It marks you, tags you, like a catch-and-release program. Except, instead of studying migration patterns, it's studying something else." "Studying what?" "How long we last." The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too crowded. A woman at the next table laughed, and it sounded like a heart monitor alarm. "The first rule," Marcus continued, "is about the beeping, 2:47 a.m. every night. When you hear it, don't move, don't open your eyes, don't acknowledge it, let it pass. It's checking, making sure you're still connected." "Connected to what?" "Second rule, the lost time. It's going to get worse. Hours become days, days become weeks. You'll blink and lose a month. During that time, you're not here, you're somewhere else. With them. Them? The ones who didn't make it out. The ones still in 314. Not their bodies. Bodies are gone. But something stayed behind. Something that needs anchors. In this world. You're talking about ghosts." "No. Ghosts are echoes, memories. These are passengers. They need us to stay connected to this side, and in exchange, they feed." "Feed on what?" He touched his temple. "Time, memories, little pieces of who you are. You'll start forgetting things, important things. Your childhood pet's name, your first kiss, your mother's face. They take it all, bit by bit, until what? Until there's nothing left of you but the bracelet." A barista dropped a mug. The crash made me jump. Marcus didn't even flinch. "Third rule," he said. "Never go back to the hospital, no matter what. You'll feel the pull, like homesickness, but worse. You'll dream about the hallways. Wake up in your car in the parking lot with no memory of driving there. Fight it. Every time you go back, you lose a piece of yourself." But Patricia said 7 went back. And they're gone. The thing about room 314, it's not just a room anymore, it's a door. And doors open both ways. "So what do I do? Just live with this? Forever?" "Not forever. Nothing's forever, not even this." He leaned forward. "There's a way out. But it's not pretty, and it's not guaranteed. Tell me. You know how organs shut down, one by one? Heart last?" I nodded. "The bracelet, it's linked to your vitals, your life signs. As long as you're alive, it stays on. But there's a window, a moment, when your heart stops. But before brain death, the connection weakens. Theoretically, if someone could remove the bracelet in that window. You're talking about dying, controlled, monitored, with someone ready to bring you back. I know a guy, used to be a paramedic. lost his partner to room 314. He's helped 2 others. One made it, bracelet came off, never came back. Living normal in Seattle now. And the other, Marcus's silence was answer enough. 50-50, I whispered. Better odds than waiting. Every day you keep it on, you fade a little more. Look at me. He held up his hand. In the morning light, I could see through it. Not completely, not like glass, but like looking through fog. 2 years, I'm running out of time. Why haven't you? Scared, same as you, same as all of us. But seeing you, fresh, still fighting, maybe it's time. The bell above the door chimed. We both looked up. No one there. The door swung gently, like someone had just left or just entered. 4th rule, Marcus said quietly. They can find you anywhere. The bracelet is like a GPS, but they're weak during the day. Sunlight. Real sunlight. It hurts them. Stay in the light. It's October in Portland, there is no sunlight. Then use artificial UV lamps, grow lights, whatever you can find. And Sarah? Yeah? When you start seeing him, Morrison, don't let him get close. He's the strongest, the first. And he's looking for a replacement. I thought about the figure in the hospital gown, the reflection in my mirror, the breathing in the bracelet. I think I've already seen him. Marcus's face went pale, paler. Then you don't have much time. The visual manifestations, that's stage 3. Stage 4 is physical contact, stage 5. What's stage 5? No one's ever come back to tell us. We sat in silence, watching the morning crowd filter in. Normal people, living normal lives, ordering complicated drinks and complaining about the weather. None of them knew that 2 tables away, 2 people were discussing the logistics of temporary death. The paramedic, I finally said. What's his name? Marcus pulled out his phone, sent me a contact. Jake Sullivan. Tell him Marcus sent you. Tell him I'm ready too. Maybe we can do this together. When? Soon, before the rain gets worse. Before the dark sets in. Before... He touched his bracelet. Before we run out of things to forget. I stood to leave, then turned back. Marcus, the one who made it, do they remember? What happened while they were connected? He met my eyes. She said she remembers everything. Every second in that place. Every face. Every scream. But she also said, knowing is better than wondering. And living with memories, even horrible ones, is better than fading away. I left him there, staring at his coffee, planning his own controlled death. Outside, the Portland morning was exactly what you'd expect. Gray, drizzling, cold. But for the first time in 11 days, I had hope. 50-50, better than 0. Jake Sullivan lived in a converted warehouse in southeast Portland, the kind of place where artists and musicians gathered before gentrification pushed them out. But Jake wasn't an artist. The moment he opened the door, I could see what he was. A man haunted by failure. Marcus called, I said. I'm Sarah, and this is... I know who you are. He looked at my bracelet, then at Marcus beside me. Both of you, together? We nodded. Come in, quickly. The inside was nothing like I'd expected. Medical equipment lined the walls, defibrillators, oxygen tanks, IV stands, like someone had robbed a hospital supply closet. In the center of the room, 2 gurneys, waiting. Used to do this in my apartment. Jake explained, closing multiple deadbolts, but neighbors complained about the screaming. Screaming? My voice cracked. Not everyone goes quietly. The separation, it hurts. Like tearing off your own skin, but worse. Because it's not just physical. Marcus squeezed my shoulder. We knew it wouldn't be easy. Jake led us deeper into the warehouse. UV lamps hung from the ceiling, bathing everything in harsh purple light. It made my bracelet look black, made the veins underneath more visible. I've done this 4 times, Jake said, pulling out medical charts. 2 successes. 2, not. The key is timing. Too soon, and the bracelet won't release. Too late, and... We know, Marcus interrupted. Just tell us what we need to do. Jake walked us through it. Clinical. Detached. Like he was explaining how to change a tire, not how to temporarily die. Potassium chloride to stop the heart, clean, predictable. I'll have 3 minutes to remove the bracelets once cardiac arrest is confirmed. Then adrenaline. Defibrillation. CPR. If everything goes right, you wake up free. And if it doesn't, then you don't wake up. Or worse, you wake up still connected. But now they know you tried to leave. They don't like that. I thought about the 7 who went back to the hospital. The empty beds. The missing bodies. When? I asked. Tonight. The longer you wait, the stronger the connection grows. You're already seeing manifestations, aren't you? I nodded. This morning, Morrison had been in my kitchen, standing by the stove, wearing that same hospital gown, smiling. I'd blinked, and he was gone. But the smell lingered. Death and antiseptic. Then we don't have time to waste. Come back at midnight. Don't eat anything after 6. Don't tell anyone where you're going. And write letters, just in case. Letters, goodbyes, explanations, whatever you need to say, because even if this works, you won't be the same. The place you've been going, during the lost time, it leaves marks, changes you. The 2 who survived, they're different now, quieter, like part of them stayed behind. We left with instructions, preparations, a strange shopping list of last day activities. I spent the afternoon at home, writing letters to Maya, to my parents, to my ex, who probably wouldn't care. Each word felt like admitting defeat, or accepting victory. I couldn't tell which. At 11:30 p.m., I met Marcus outside the warehouse. He looked calm, ready. You scared? I asked. Terrified. You? Same. We walked in together. Jake had transformed the space, monitors everywhere, equipment laid out like a surgical suite. The UV lamps turned up so bright it hurt to look at them. Lie down, Jake instructed. I'll insert the IVs first, then we wait for midnight. The connection is weakest at the transition. Something about the time, the boundary between days. I lay on the gurney, feeling the cold metal through my shirt. Marcus was 3 feet away, close enough to reach over and grab his hand. I did. Together, he said. Together. Jake inserted the IVs. Professional, practiced, like he'd never stopped being a paramedic. When I push the potassium, you'll feel cold, then pressure in your chest, then nothing, don't fight it. The easier you go, the easier you come back. 11:58. Morrison stood in the corner, watching. No, not just Morrison, others, 5, 6, a dozen, all in hospital gowns, all wearing bracelets, all waiting. You see them, Marcus whispered. Yeah? Me too, 11:59. If this doesn't work, I started. It will. But if it doesn't, I'm glad I'm not alone. Me too, midnight. Now, Jake said, and pushed the plungers. Cold raced up my arm. Not winter cold, not ice cold. The cold of absolute absence. The cold of the space between stars. My chest tightened, compressed, like someone sitting on my ribs. The monitors began their song. Beep, 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 then slower, slower. The figures in the corner stepped forward. Morrison leading them. His mouth moved, no sound. But I could read his lips. You can't leave. No one leaves. You're ours now. My vision tunneled. Black edges creeping in. But I could still see Jake moving fast, scissors in hand, working on Marcus's bracelet first. The plastic resisted, even now, even as Marcus's heart stopped. The monitors screamed flatline. Jake pulled harder. The bracelet stretched, thinned, snapped. Marcus's body convulsed. The figures in the corner shrieked, silent, but somehow deafening. One of them, a young woman, flickered, faded, disappeared. "One down," Jake muttered, turning to me. "Your turn." But I couldn't see him anymore. The black had won. I was falling, not down, not up. Sideways, through, into the place I'd been going during the lost time. Room 314, but not the room I remembered. This one stretched infinitely in all directions. Beds upon beds upon beds, each one occupied. Each patient wearing a bracelet. Each one trapped between life and death. "Welcome back," Morrison said. Not the silent figure from before, the real Morrison, the first. Standing beside my bed, no longer in a hospital gown but in a doctor's coat. "We've been waiting for you to join us properly. I'm leaving." I tried to say, but had no voice, no body, just consciousness floating in the medical void. No one leaves, we tried, all of us, but the room needs us, feeds on us, and in exchange, we get to exist, not live, not die, just be. Jake is cutting the bracelet. Is he? Are you sure? Time moves differently here. What feels like seconds out there could be years in here. He might have given up, might have failed, might have... Pain. Sudden. Violent. Like being torn in half. I looked down, or what passed for down in this place, and saw my bracelet, stretching, fighting. The connection screaming as it pulled apart. "No!" Morrison lunged for me. "You can't. If you leave, someone has to take your place. The room must have 12, always 12. If you leave." The bracelet snapped. The room exploded. Not with fire or force, but with sound. Every patient in every bed screaming at once. The walls cracking. The infinite space collapsing. And Morrison's face changing, not angry, not desperate, relieved. "Thank you," he whispered as he faded. "Thank you for setting me free." Pain in my chest. Electric, violent. Jake's voice distant. Come on, don't you quit on me." Light, bright, burning. Not the UV lamps. Something else. Something warm. Sunlight? No, not sunlight. The overhead lights of the warehouse. I was back, gasping, coughing, alive. "There you are," Jake said, exhausted but smiling. "Thought I'd lost you for a minute. You were gone for... how long? 4 minutes, maybe 5. Longest I've ever... Marcus?" I turned my head. The other gurney was empty. "Where's..." "Bathroom." He came back easier. "Younger heart, you fought it, both directions." I looked at my wrist, bare. Red and raw where the bracelet had been, but bare, empty, free. "It's gone," I whispered. "Yeah, both of them. Clean breaks, you're free." But even as he said it, I knew it wasn't completely true. I could feel the absence. Not just of the bracelet, but of something else. Pieces of me, memories, moments, left behind in that infinite room. Payment for my freedom. Marcus emerged from the bathroom, pale, shaking, but smiling. He held up his bare wrist like a trophy. "We did it. We did it." Jake checked us over. Vitals, reflexes, cognitive function, all normal, all expected, except there's always something, he said quietly. The ones who come back. You'll notice things, gaps in your memory, moments of disconnect. Sometimes you'll smell antiseptic when there is none. Sometimes you'll hear beeping that isn't there. It fades, mostly, but it never fully goes away. "But we're alive," I said. "You're alive, and more importantly, you're you. Not passengers, not anchors, just you." We stayed for another hour. Observation, recovery. Jake made us sign papers absolving him of liability. Made us promise never to mention his name to anyone else with a bracelet. "I can't save them all," he said. "I won't try. This is my limit." When we finally left, Portland was experiencing something rare. Clear skies. stars visible through the light pollution. Marcus and I stood on the sidewalk, breathing in air that didn't smell like hospitals. "What now?" he asked. "Now, we live. Actually live, not just exist." Yeah, we do." We parted ways. Promises to check in, to make sure the other was still okay, still free, but I knew we probably wouldn't. What we'd shared, what we'd survived. It was too much, too intense. Sometimes the only way to move forward is to leave the battlefield behind. I drove home slowly, testing myself. Was I really here, really present? The street signs were clear, the radio played modern songs. My phone showed today's date, all good signs. Maya was waiting in the kitchen. 3 a.m. and she was waiting. "Sarah, where have you been? I was worried." I held up my wrist. Clean, empty, free. Had to take care of something, but it's done now. I'm done. She hugged me, long and tight, and for the first time in 2 weeks I hugged back without fear, without feeling the pulse of something alien against my skin. That was 3 months ago. I still work dispatch, still live with Maya, still go through most days without thinking about room 314. The gaps in my memory that Jake warned about, they're there. I can't remember my third-grade teacher's name. Can't recall my first apartment's address. Small prices for freedom. Sometimes, late at night, I hear beeping, faint, distant, like an echo of an echo, but it doesn't control me, doesn't summon me. It's just noise. Background static from a connection that's been severed. I never went back to Portland General. Never Googled room 314 again. Never searched for others with bracelets that wouldn't come off. That chapter is closed, burned, buried. But I know they're out there. Right now, someone is waking up in room 314. Someone is having a bracelet snapped around their wrist. Someone is being told, "We'll cut this off when you're discharged." And maybe, if they're lucky, they'll find Patricia, find Marcus's coffee shop, find someone like Jake, find a way out before the connection grows too strong. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll become the new anchors, the new passengers, the new voices calling from hospital bracelets in the middle of the night. I don't think about it. Can't think about it. Because the thing I learned, the thing that keeps me up some nights, is that room 314 isn't special, isn't unique. It's just the one I found. Every hospital has rooms like that, spaces where things went wrong, where the boundary got thin, where something hungry learned to feed. So the next time you're in a hospital, and they put that bracelet on your wrist, pay attention. Make sure it's just plastic, just information, just temporary. And if it won't come off, if you hear beeping at 2:47 a.m., if you start losing time, run, fight, find help, do whatever it takes, because once you're marked, once you're chosen, once you become an anchor, the only way out is through death itself. And not everyone comes back. Not everyone wants to, and sometimes, in my darkest moments, when the memories of that infinite room feel more real than my apartment, I wonder if I really made it back at all, or if this is just another layer, another room, another dream within the eternal nightmare of room 314. But then I look at my wrist, bare, scarred but bare, and I remember, I'm free. We're free. For now. If you made it this far, check your wrist, both of them. Make sure they're bare. Make sure you're really here, really listening, really alive. And if you've ever had a bracelet that wouldn't come off, even for a day, even for an hour, you might want to sleep with the lights on tonight. All of them. Just to be safe. Because Morrison might be gone. But room 314 is still there, still hungry, still waiting, and it always needs 12. Always. Sweet dreams. Story number 2. They say the ocean keeps secrets. But what happens when those secrets grow legs and walk among us? Before I tell you this story, I need you to promise me something. Promise you'll listen to the end, because if you don't, you might make the same mistake I did. Hit that subscribe button now. Trust me, you'll want to hear what comes next. And now, the story begins. The smell hit me first. Not the usual salt and seaweed scent you'd expect in Crescent Harbor, Maine, but something else. Something that made my stomach turn even before I understood why. It was 3 a.m, and I couldn't sleep. The full moon hung over the Atlantic like a silver eye, watching, waiting. I'd moved to this coastal town 6 months ago, running from a bad breakup in Boston. The locals were friendly enough, but they had this weird thing about full moons. Shops closed early. Nobody walked near the shore, even the fishermen. Tough guys who'd brave hurricane swells, they stayed home. Just old superstition, Mrs. Kellerman had told me when I'd asked. She ran the general store on Harbor Street. Been that way since my grandmother's time. But that night, that smell, it pulled me from my bed like invisible fingers. Rotting fish mixed with something sweeter, almost floral. I threw on my Patriots hoodie and headed downstairs, past the kitchen where I'd left my half-eaten lobster roll from dinner. The street outside was empty, not unusual for Crescent Harbor, but the silence felt different, heavy, like the whole town was holding its breath. I lived 3 blocks from the water, in one of those converted Victorian houses that Maine does so well. As I walked, that smell grew stronger. My bare feet slapped against the cold pavement, and I realized I'd forgotten my shoes. Weird, I never forgot my shoes. The moon lit everything in sharp relief, turning familiar streets into something from a dream, or a nightmare. I passed the Dunkin' Donuts where I got my coffee every morning. Dark now, chairs stacked on tables like skeletons. Then I heard it, a wet slapping sound, like someone dropping a soaked towel on concrete, over and over. Slap, slap, slap. I froze at the corner of Harbor and Main, pressing myself against the brick wall of the bank. The sound was coming from the direction of the pier, but there was something wrong with the rhythm. Too many slaps, happening too fast, like dozens of wet towels hitting the ground at once. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. Go back inside. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the message. Who would text me at 3 a.m? How did they know I was outside? The slapping sounds grew closer. I peeked around the corner, and my brain just stopped. It couldn't process what I was seeing. The street was full of fish, but they weren't flopping like dying fish do. They were walking. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Their scales caught the moonlight, creating a river of silver that flowed up from the harbor. They moved on their fins like legs, bodies undulating in a way that made my skin crawl. Some were small, mackerel-sized. Others were huge, 3 or 4 feet long, leaving wet trails behind them like slug slime. And their eyes, God, their eyes, they glowed in the darkness, not reflecting light but generating it. Pale green, like those glow sticks kids crack on Halloween. I pressed harder against the wall, trying to become part of the brick. One of the larger fish, something that might have been a cod, stopped directly in front of me. Its mouth opened and closed, like it was trying to speak. Inside, I saw rows of teeth that fish shouldn't have. Human teeth. White and straight, like they'd been to an orthodontist. My phone buzzed again. Don't let them see you. Too late. The cod thing's glowing eyes fixed on mine. It made a sound, not quite a scream, not quite a whistle, but something between the two that made my fillings ache. Every fish on the street stopped moving. Hundreds of glowing eyes turned toward me. I ran. Behind me. The slapping sounds accelerated. became a thunderous, wet percussion that echoed off the buildings. I didn't look back. Couldn't look back. My bare feet slipped on something slick. Fish slime or my own fear sweat. I didn't know. I burst through my front door, slammed it shut, through the deadbolt. My hands shook so badly it took 3 tries. Through the frosted glass panel, I could see shapes moving past. The slapping sounds circled my house. Once, twice, then moved on. I slumped against the door, chest heaving. My phone buzzed one more time. Welcome to Crescent Harbor, next full moon, stay inside. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those glowing green orbs, those human teeth and fishy mouths. By morning, I'd almost convinced myself it had been a nightmare. Almost. But the evidence was everywhere. Slimy trails crisscrossed the streets like a map of madness. The smell lingered. That sick, sweet rot that made coffee taste like copper. And the looks, God, the looks the locals gave me. I was buying Band-Aids at Kellerman's. My feet were pretty cut up from running barefoot when old Charlie Trawler cornered me by the seafood counter. Heard you were out last night, he said. Voice low, eyes darting to Mrs. Kellerman. I couldn't sleep. He grabbed my wrist. His hands were rough from decades of pulling nets. But his grip was gentle, urgent. You see them? I nodded. And they saw you? Another nod. Charlie's face went pale beneath his weathered tan. Then you're marked now, same as the rest of us. He pulled up his sleeve, revealing a scar on his forearm. It looked like a bite mark, but the teeth pattern was all wrong. Too many teeth, too straight. Got this 40 years ago, first time I saw them. They remember faces. Sounds crazy, but they do. Mrs. Kellerman cleared her throat. Charlie, don't scare the girl. She needs to know, Martha. He turned back to me. Next full moon, they'll come for you specifically. They always come back for the ones who've seen them. Always. I bought my Band-Aids and practically ran home. Googled everything I could about the Crescent Harbor. Fish behavior, mass hallucinations. Nothing. It was like the town's biggest secret had never made it online. Days passed. The trails washed away with the rain. The smell faded. People stopped giving me those looks. I almost started to feel normal again. Started to think maybe Charlie was just a lonely old man trying to scare the new girl. Then I found the journal. I was cleaning out the attic, trying to make the space into a home office, when I discovered it wedged behind a beam. Leather-bound, water-stained, filled with entries dating back to 1892. The handwriting changed every few decades, but the stories were the same. June 12, 1892, the walking fish came again last night. Lost 2 children from the Murphy family. Found their clothes by the pier. Nothing else. August 3rd, 1924. Full moon brought them as always. Marshall says we can't tell outsiders. Says they wouldn't believe us anyway. He's probably right. October 15th, 1967. Tried to film them tonight. Camera wouldn't work. It never works during the walks. Electronic devices just die. It's like they know. The latest entry was from just last year in shaky handwriting. September 30th, 2023. I'm too old for this. Selling the house to someone from away, God forgive me, but I can't face another moon. Let someone younger deal with our curse. The fish remember everything. But maybe they'll forget me if I'm gone. Maybe. Eleanor Whitmore. Eleanor Whitmore, the previous owner. The real estate agent said she'd moved to Florida for her health. I was still reading when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman about my age. Blonde, wearing a Bruins jersey. Normal looking. I opened the door. "Hi," she said. A smile too bright. "I'm Kayla from down the street. Heard we had a new neighbor. Thought I'd bring cookies." She held up a Tupperware container. Something about her felt off, but I was desperate for normal human interaction. I invited her in. We sat in my kitchen, eating chocolate chip cookies, talking about Boston, the Red Sox, anything but fish. Then she asked, "So, what made you choose Crescent Harbor?" "Just needed a change," I said. "Wanted somewhere quiet." Her smile faltered. "Quiet, right. Has it been quiet?" I stopped mid-chew. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Just small towns. You know, sometimes they're too quiet." She stood abruptly. "I should go, but hey, next full moon? You should come to my place. I'm having a party, a staying inside party. Much safer. I mean, more fun than being alone." After she left, I noticed she'd barely touched her own cookies, and there were wet footprints on my kitchen floor, even though it hadn't rained in days. 3 weeks until the next full moon. 3 weeks of pretending everything was normal while the whole town held its breath. I tried to leave, twice. First time, my car wouldn't start, battery was fine, engine was fine. It just wouldn't turn over. Second time, I made it to the town limits before every warning light on my dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. The mechanic, a guy named Derek who wore a faded Celtics cap, just shook his head when he looked under the hood. "Nothing wrong with it," he said. "Mechanically speaking. Then why won't it run?" He glanced around the empty garage, then leaned in close. "Same reason the planes get grounded during full moons. Same reason the cell towers go down. They don't want us leaving. And they sure don't want anyone coming in." "They?" But Derek was already walking away, wiping his hands on a rag that left more grease than it removed. I started preparing. If I couldn't leave, I'd at least be ready. Bought plywood from the hardware store, enough to board up every window. Stocked up on canned goods, batteries, first aid supplies. The cashier, a teenager with bad acne and worse attitude, rang everything up without comment, until I added salt to my pile. "You'll want more than that," he said quietly. "More salt? Lots more. They don't like it, burns them, or something." He glanced at his manager, then quickly added 3 more containers to my bag. On the house. Word spread that I was preparing. People started showing up at my door, offering advice, supplies, stories. Mrs. Chen from 2 houses down brought me her grandmother's jade bracelet. "For protection," she said. "Worked during the war? Might work for this." Even Kayla came back, this time without the fake smile. "I'm sorry about before," she said. "I was trying to, I don't know, pretend things were normal, but they're not. Haven't been for a long time." She told me her story. How she'd moved here with her husband 5 years ago, how he'd gone outside during a full moon, curious, skeptical, stupid. How she'd found his wedding ring on the beach the next morning, still attached to his finger. Just his finger. "The police said shark attack," she laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. "Sharks that walk on land and only hunt during full moons." Right. 2 nights before the full moon, I had the dream. I was underwater, but breathing normally. Schools of fish swam past, but they had human faces. My face. Thousands of me, swimming in perfect synchronization. And in the distance, something massive moved in the darkness. Something that had been sleeping on the ocean floor for centuries, waiting for the right moon, the right tide, the right marked souls to finally wake it up. I woke gasping. Sheets soaked with sweat that smelled like low tide. My phone was buzzing. Dozens of texts, all from unknown numbers, all saying the same thing. "You saw us. Now we see you." The next day, everyone avoided me. Even Charlie wouldn't meet my eyes at the grocery store. It was like I'd become contagious, infected with something that might spread. Only Kayla still talked to me, and even she kept her distance. It's not personal, she explained. It's just the marked ones. Sometimes they change during the full moon. Sometimes they don't come back entirely human. That night, the night before the full moon, I made my final preparations, boarded up every window, laid salt lines at every entrance, filled the bathtub with fresh water, just in case. Then I sat in my living room, waiting, watching the clock tick toward midnight. At 11:47, the power went out, not just my house, the whole town. I looked through a crack in the boards and saw Crescent Harbor plunged into darkness. Only the moon provided light, and it was almost full. Almost time. My phone, which should have been dead without power to the cell towers, received one last message. The deep ones remember. The deep ones rise. The deep ones hunger. Then silence. The kind of silence that makes you realize how loud the world usually is. No humming refrigerator, no distant cars, no wind. Just my heartbeat. And somewhere in the distance, getting closer, the wet slapping sound of 1,000 fish learning to walk. The hour before midnight was the worst. Waiting, knowing. I tried calling my mom in Worcester, but the phone lines were already dead. Even my cell had no bars. Just that impossible message still glowing on the screen. The deep ones hunger. I made myself a cup of tea, hands shaking so bad I spilled half the water. Normal things, human things. Like tea could save me from whatever was coming. The smell of chamomile mixed with that ever-present fish rot made me gag, but I drank it anyway. Needed something warm, something real. At 11:55, I heard it. Not the slapping. Not yet. Singing. Have you ever heard a whale song? That mournful, beautiful sound that carries for miles underwater. This was like that, but wrong. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds, coming from the direction of the harbor. The melody was almost familiar. Like a lullaby you heard as a child, but can't quite remember. It made my teeth ache, made my bones vibrate. I peeked through the boards covering my kitchen window. The street was still empty, but I could see lights in other houses going out one by one, like dominoes falling. The Hendersons' house went dark, then the Nguyens, then old Mr. Peterson's place where he always kept every light burning because he was afraid of the dark. Now I understood why. The singing grew louder, and I realized with sick certainty that some of the voices were human, or had been human. They were calling names. I heard Rebecca Chen sung like a prayer. Marcus Webb turned into a morning song, and then, soft but clear, I heard my own name woven into that terrible melody. They knew who I was. They knew where I lived. At 11:59, the singing stopped. The silence that followed was worse than any sound. It pressed against my eardrums, thick and heavy like being underwater. I found myself holding my breath, waiting, listening. Midnight. The full moon hung perfectly centered in the sky, and they came. The slapping started at the harbor, just like before, but louder. So much louder. My whole house vibrated with each wet impact. Through the cracks in my boarded windows, I watched Main Street fill with writhing bodies. Not hundreds this time, thousands, tens of thousands. They moved differently now, with purpose, with coordination. The smaller fish formed ranks like soldiers, while the massive ones, things that should have been too heavy to move on land, dragged themselves forward on fins that had grown thick and muscular. I heard screaming from somewhere nearby, human screaming that cut off too quickly, then, worse than screaming, I heard laughter. Wet, gurgling laughter that no human throat should make. Something heavy hit my front door. Then again, the wood groaned but held. Through the peephole, I saw one of the big ones. A tuna, maybe, but wrong. Its mouth opened sideways like a flower blooming. revealing row after row of those perfect human teeth. It spoke, and I understood it. Marked 1, come home. More voices joined it, a chorus of fish things speaking in unison. Come home, come home. The deep calls you home. My salt line began to smoke. The smell filled my nostrils. Not burning exactly, but something chemical. Wrong. The jade bracelet on my wrist turned ice cold. In the bathtub, the water I'd stored started to bubble. I ran upstairs, locked myself in the bedroom, pushed the dresser against the door. Useless gestures. I could hear them in the walls now, between the spaces, whispering in languages that predated words. My phone, dead for hours, suddenly blazed to life. The screen showed me impossibilities. Video feeds from around town, even though the power was out. The church on Maple Street, surrounded by walking fish. Their priest standing among them with gills flapping on his neck. The elementary school playground, where child-sized shapes with scales played on swings beneath the moon. And the harbor. God. The harbor where something vast was rising from the water. Something that made the walking fish look like minnows. But it was the beach cam that made me understand the true horror. Crescent Harbor Beach, where families built sandcastles and teenagers had bonfires. It was covered in cocoons, thousands of them, man-sized silk sacks that pulsed with internal movement. And I recognized the faces pressed against the translucent walls, everyone who'd been marked over the years, everyone who'd disappeared during full moons. They weren't dead, they were changing, waiting, preparing for tonight. One of the cocoons near the camera split open. The thing that crawled out had been Jennifer Morse, the librarian who'd helped me get my library card that first week, but now she moved on all fours. Her spine elongated and ridged with fins. When she stood, water poured from her mouth like a fountain. She looked directly at the camera, directly at me, and smiled with too many teeth. "We're coming home," she mouthed. No sound, but I heard it in my head anyway. All of us coming home. The feeds kept changing. The harbor where fishing boats were sinking, pulled down by things with tentacles thick as telephone poles. Main Street where the walking fish had formed circles, dancing, writhing in patterns that hurt to perceive. The hospital where patients were breaking out of their rooms, their IVs trailing behind them like jellyfish tendrils, their eyes already glowing green. Then I saw my own house, from outside, a feed that couldn't exist showing angles that made no sense. I saw myself, crouched in my bedroom, clutching my phone. But in the video, my shadow was wrong. It had too many arms. It moved independently. It was already changing even if my body hadn't caught up yet. I knew then what the fish really were. Not invaders. Not monsters. Messengers. Preparing the way for something that had slept beneath our waves since before humans drew their first breath. And everyone they marked, everyone who saw them. We were part of the preparation. Part of the change. The dresser exploded inward. Kayla stood in the doorway. But not Kayla anymore. Her skin rippled with scales that caught the moonlight. Gills fluttered where her neck met her shoulders. When she smiled, I saw the teeth. "It's not so bad," she said. Voice like water over rocks. Once you accept it, once you let the deep in. Behind her, Charlie Trawler climbed through the window I thought I'd secured. His transformation was further along. Fins where his arms should be. Eyes glowing that familiar green. Mrs. Kellerman squeezed through the heating vent, her body boneless and flexible in ways that made my mind hurt. "We've all been marked," Charlie gurgled. "Generations of us, waiting, preparing. And now, with you, we have enough." "Enough for what?" My voice came out as a whisper. "To wake the deep father, they said in unison, "to bring the ocean home." I felt it then, the change starting in my cells. Salt water replacing blood, gills forming beneath my skin. My phone showed me the final image. The thing rising from the harbor, impossibly vast, impossibly old, impossibly hungry. Its eyes were moons, its teeth were islands, and it was coming for its children. I tried to scream, but only bubbles came out. The moon's pull was too strong, the call too deep. My legs buckled, reformed, became something meant for swimming. But wait, I need to tell you what happened in those final moments. What I learned before the change took me completely. Because if you're listening, if you've made it this far, you deserve to know the truth. As my bones began to shift, memories that weren't mine flooded in. Ancient memories. From the first fish that ever crawled onto land millions of years ago, carrying the deep Father's promise in its primitive brain. Every creature that returned to the sea. Whales, seals, sea turtles. They were the wise ones. They knew what was coming, knew that the land was just a temporary mistake. I saw the history of Crescent Harbor through 1,000 eyes. The indigenous people who'd built their villages here, who'd made bargains with the things in the deep, trading their sick and elderly for good fishing, for calm seas. The pilgrims who'd arrived later, who'd tried to break those bargains with their crosses and prayers, only to watch their children walk into the waves during the next full moon. The memories showed me other towns too, all along the coast, all around the world. Anywhere the ocean touched land, the marked ones waited, prepared. We weren't the first civilization to return to the water. The ruins beneath the waves, the cities that fishermen sometimes glimpse in their nets, those were built by the ones who'd accepted the change before us. Mrs. Kellerman crawled closer, her form barely recognizable now. "Every culture has flood myths," she gurgled, "but they got it backwards. The floods aren't coming to destroy us, they're coming to save us, to bring us home before the dry lands burn." Through my shifting vision, I saw the truth of it, the rising seas, the warming oceans. It wasn't climate change, not the way we understood it. The deep Father was warming his bath, preparing his nursery, making the world ready for his children's return. But we needed more marked ones, Charlie explained, though his voice came from everywhere and nowhere. The stars are almost right, the moon tides are perfect, but we needed a catalyst. Someone who would see without generations of preparation. Someone whose fear would be pure enough, strong enough to wake him fully. Me. They'd chosen me, lured me here with a cheap house and a broken heart. Let me discover just enough to be terrified, but not enough to truly escape. My fear, our listener's fear, that's what feeds him. That's what gives him strength to rise. The last human thought I had was a warning. Had Eleanor Whitmore really moved to Florida? Or was she swimming somewhere in the dark Atlantic, waiting like the rest of us? But no. I'd seen her cocoon on the beach, seen her name written in scales on the harbor master's log. She'd never left. None of them ever left. They just went deeper. As my lungs filled with salt water that felt more natural than air ever had, I understood one final truth. The walking fish weren't the horror. They were the salvation. Every full moon, they came to offer us a choice. Join willingly, or join when the waters rise and there's nowhere else to go. The transformation completed then. My skin split and revealed scales that had always been waiting underneath. My eyes, those unreliable human eyes, finally saw clearly in the dark water that now filled my room. No, not water, not yet, something between states, something that let the marked ones practice breathing, practice swimming, practice being what we were always meant to be. Now I walk with them. Every full moon, we rise from the harbor, looking for new eyes to see us, new souls to mark, new soldiers for the coming tide. And if you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, then you're already marked too. You just don't know it yet. But you will. Next full moon, when you smell something sweet-sick on the wind, when your electronics die and your neighbors lock their doors, when you hear that wet slapping on your street, you'll understand. We're not coming to hurt you. We're coming to bring you home, to the deep, where we all belong, where we've always belonged. The ocean remembers everything, and it's been waiting so patiently for its children to return. So, tell me, did you check when the next full moon is? Did you notice that smell when you started listening? That faint, sweet, fishy smell? Check your windows, check your doors. We're already here, and if this story kept you up, if it made your skin crawl, if you felt that tug in your chest like the tide pulling you out to sea, then hit subscribe. Share this with someone you love, or someone you don't. Leave a comment telling me where you live, so we know where to visit next. Tell me, have you ever woken up with salt on your lips? Ever felt homesick for a place you've never been? Ever stood at the edge of the ocean and thought, just for a moment, about walking in and never coming back? That's the deep Father calling. That's your true nature trying to surface. The full moon is coming. Check your calendar, mark the date, and when you smell something sweet-sick on the wind that night, when your neighbor's eyes reflect light like a cat's, when you hear that wet slapping getting closer and closer, remember this story, remember my warning, remember that you chose to listen to the end, because the deep Father is waking, and he's so very hungry. But here's the thing they don't want me to tell you. The real reason I can share this story, sometimes, just sometimes, the transformation reverses, just for a few hours, just long enough to seem human again, to upload a video, to spread the word, to mark new souls through their earbuds and screens. So ask yourself, how did I know all these details? How could I describe the transformation so perfectly? How did I know about the cocoons, the singing, the way salt water feels more natural than air? Check the upload date of this video. Check your calendar. Notice anything interesting about the moon phase. We're not coming to hurt you. We're coming to bring you home, to the deep, where we all belong, where we've always belonged. The ocean remembers everything, and it's been waiting so patiently for its children to return. Sweet dreams, and see you next full moon. Story number 3. The first time I noticed them, I thought maybe I'd been sleepwalking again. Green smears across my palms, dirt under my fingernails, the smell of freshly cut grass clinging to my pajamas like a memory I couldn't quite place. But here's the thing, I live on the 15th floor of a Manhattan high-rise. There's no grass for miles, and I haven't left my apartment in 3 weeks. If you're still listening after that, well, you might want to check your own hands tomorrow morning. Just saying. All right, the story starts now. My name is Marcus, and I work from home as a data analyst for a tech startup in Silicon Valley. Remote work, they call it. Paradise, I used to think. No commute, no awkward water cooler conversations, no need to even change out of my sweatpants if I didn't want to. My one-bedroom apartment in Chelsea became my entire world. And honestly, I was fine with that. The grass stains started appearing on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday is when I have my weekly video call with my manager, Derek, and I spent 10 minutes scrubbing my hands raw before the meeting, terrified he'd somehow see the green streaks through my laptop camera. "You feeling all right, Marcus?" Derek had asked, his pixelated face scrunching with concern. "You look a little off." "Just tired," I'd mumbled, hiding my hands under the desk. "Been pulling some late nights on the Peterson account." That was a lie. I'd been sleeping more than ever. 10, sometimes 12 hours a night. Deep, dreamless sleep that left me feeling more exhausted than when I'd gone to bed. And every morning, those damn stains. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd touched something green. Maybe the new laundry detergent was reacting weird with my skin. Maybe. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The stains were always in the same places. My palms, like I'd been pressing them into wet grass. My knees, even though I hadn't knelt anywhere. Sometimes, there'd be blades of grass stuck to my feet, fresh and dewy, like they'd just been plucked from someone's lawn. I started taking pictures. Every morning, before I washed them away, my phone filled up with evidence of something I couldn't explain. Green hands, dirty feet. Once, there was mud caked under my toenails so thick I had to use a knife to dig it out. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, knocked on my door one afternoon while I was in the middle of another cleaning session. "Marcus, honey, you sure you're okay in there?" Her voice was muffled through the door. "I keep hearing you running water at all hours." I froze, hands still under the scalding tap. "I'm fine, Mrs. Chen. Just really into hygiene lately." She paused. I could practically hear her frowning. "Well, if you need anything..." "Thanks, I'm good." But I wasn't good. I was starting to lose it. I installed a camera in my bedroom, one of those nanny cams disguised as a phone charger. If I was sleepwalking, if I was somehow leaving my apartment and rolling around in Central Park like some kind of midnight maniac, I'd catch myself in the act. The first night, nothing. I watched myself sleep for 8 hours straight. No movement except the occasional turn. No getting up, no leaving. Just me, in bed, dead to the world. But the next morning, grass stains. Fresh ones. And something else, a smell, not just grass anymore, something earthier, richer, like soil after rain, like grave dirt. I started avoiding sleep, pumped myself full of energy drinks and coffee, stayed up binge-watching true crime documentaries on Netflix. Anything to stay awake, anything to avoid whatever was happening to me in the dark, but you can only fight biology for so long. On the fourth night of my caffeine vigil, I passed out at my desk. Face planted right into my keyboard, leaving QWERTY imprints on my cheek. When I woke up, the sun was streaming through my windows, and my hands, they were worse than ever. Not just stained now, scraped, like I'd been clawing at something. Blood under my nails mixed with the dirt. And on my laptop screen, reflected in the morning light, I could see something that made my heart stop. Muddy footprints. Leading from my bed to my desk. Fresh. Still damp. But here's the thing, they weren't my footprints. They were too small. I called in sick for the rest of the week. Derek didn't question it. I probably sounded as terrible as I felt. My voice had gone hoarse from lack of sleep, and I kept forgetting what I was saying mid-sentence. "Take all the time you need," he'd said. "Your health comes first." Health. Right. I spent hours studying those footprints before I finally cleaned them up. They were maybe a size 6, 7 at most. Bare feet with distinct toe prints. A child's feet, I thought at first, but something about them seemed wrong. The proportions were off. The big toe was too long, almost finger-like, and there were only 4 toes on each foot. I checked the camera footage from that night, watched myself pass out at the desk, fast-forwarded through hours of nothing. Then, at 3:33 a.m. exactly, the screen went black. Not turned off, just black, like something had covered the lens. When the image returned at 4:44 a.m., I was exactly where I'd been before. But those footprints were there, and my hands were stained. I started researching, Googling everything I could think of. Grass stains appearing mysteriously, waking up with dirt on hands, unexplained footprints in apartment. Most of the results were useless. Sleepwalking forums, paranormal websites full of obviously fake stories. Nothing that matched what I was experiencing. Until I found the Reddit thread. It was buried deep in R Glitch in the Matrix, posted 3 years ago by someone named _Greenhands. The title made my blood run cold. I wake up with grass stains every morning, but I haven't been outside in months. The post was short. Started happening after I moved into my new apartment. 6th floor, no balcony, no plants. Every morning I wake up with grass stains on my hands and dirt under my nails. Landlord says the building was built on an old cemetery, but that's probably bullshit. Anyone else experiencing this? Starting to really freak me out. There were only a few comments. Most were jokes or suggestions about sleepwalking. But one stood out. Same thing happened to my sister. Started with grass stains, then mud. Then she started finding things in her bed. Rocks, twigs, dead insects. She moved out after she woke up with cemetery flowers on her pillow. Never happened again after she left that apartment. Cemetery flowers. I thought about the smell. That grave dirt scent that had been getting stronger each morning. The commenter's username was still active. I sent them a message. Hi, I saw your comment from 3 years ago about your sister and the grass stains. I'm experiencing something similar. Can you tell me more? What happened to her? Where was the apartment? While I waited for a response, I did something I'd been avoiding. I researched my building. The Grandview Towers, built in 1987. Luxury apartments in the heart of Chelsea. Nothing unusual in the official records. But when I dug deeper, when I started looking at historical maps of Manhattan, I found something that made my hands shake. Before the Grandview Towers, before the parking garage that came before it, before the tenements that came before that, there was a cemetery. The old Manning Cemetery, established 1798, relocated 1924 to make room for city expansion. Relocated, that's what they called it. But I found articles from the time. Complaints from families saying graves were left behind. Bodies discovered during construction years later. The city had been in such a rush to develop they'd only moved the headstones. They built on graves. They built on bodies, and I was living 15 floors above them. The Reddit user responded that night. I don't like thinking about what happened to my sister. She's okay now, but it took therapy to get over it. The apartment was in Chicago, old building near Lincoln Park. She said it felt like something was trying to pull her down every night. Down through the floors, down to the dirt. She never saw anything, but she felt it. Does that make sense? My advice, get out, don't wait like she did, pull her down. I looked at my hands. The stains were starting to appear again, even though I'd been awake all day. Faint green shadows under my skin, like grass was growing inside me. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat in my kitchen with every light on, drinking coffee and watching my hands. At 3:33 a.m., I felt it. A tugging sensation. Gentle at first, like someone had tied invisible strings to my fingers, then stronger. My hands started moving on their own, pulling downward, pressing against the table like they were trying to push through it. I fought it, grabbed my own wrists, held them up, but the pull was getting stronger. My whole body wanted to go down, to sink, to burrow. No, I whispered, then louder, no! The pulling stopped, but when I looked at my hands, they were covered in fresh dirt, wet, black soil that smelled like decay, like death, like something was trying to climb up while I was being pulled down. I started sleeping in hotels. The first night at the Holiday Inn near Times Square, nothing happened. I woke up clean, refreshed, normal. It was like being myself again. I almost cried with relief. But I couldn't afford hotels forever. After a week, my credit card was maxed out, and I had to go home. The apartment felt different when I walked in. Colder, darker, even with all the lights on. And the smell, that grave dirt smell, was everywhere now. In my clothes, my furniture, my sheets, no amount of cleaning could get it out. I set up more cameras, one in every room. If something was happening, if something was in here with me, I was going to catch it. That night, I took enough Benadryl to knock out a horse. I figured if I was drugged deeply enough, maybe whatever was pulling at me couldn't get through. maybe I could sleep through it. I was wrong. I woke up at 3:33 a.m. Not in my bed, not in my apartment. I was in the basement. The Grandview Tower's basement was supposed to be off limits to residents. Storage for maintenance equipment, they said. Dangerous, they said. But there I was, standing barefoot on cold concrete, my hands pressed against the wall. No, not against it. Into it. My fingers had somehow pushed through the concrete like it was clay, sinking in up to my knuckles. And through the wall, through the concrete and rebar, and whatever else was holding this building up, I could feel something pushing back. Fingers pressing against mine from the other side. I screamed, yanked my hands back so hard I fell, leaving perfect handprints embedded in the wall. The concrete was soft where I'd touched it, warm and yielding like flesh. I ran, took the stairs 3 at a time, my dirty feet slapping against the cold steps. Burst into my apartment and slammed the door, shoving a chair under the handle like that would somehow help. The cameras. I had to check the cameras. My laptop was already open, the footage queued up. I watched myself take the pills, get into bed, fall asleep. Then, at 3:33 a.m., just like before, all the screens went black. But this time, I heard something in the darkness. Whispering. Multiple voices speaking in unison, "Come down, come back, come home." When the footage returned, I was gone. My bed was empty, but the sheets were covered in dirt. And there were those footprints again, dozens of them, all leading to my door. All going out, none coming back in. I started researching the old Manning cemetery obsessively. Found records, death certificates, old newspaper clippings. The cemetery had been segregated, like everything else back then, different sections for different people. The wealthy in marble mausoleums, the poor in unmarked graves. And then there was the children's section. The articles called it a tragedy. Scarlet fever outbreak, 1823. 27 children dead in 2 weeks, all buried in the same corner of the cemetery, all in tiny pine boxes that would have rotted away decades ago. 27 children. And according to the old cemetery maps, their section would have been right about where the Grandview Towers stood now. I found a photograph from 1920, just before the relocation. Rows of small headstones, most too weathered to read. But in the foreground, one was still clear. They sleep, but dream of playing in fields eternal. Fields. Grass. Playing. Oh God, they were... My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Marcus. The voice was small, young. A child's voice. Marcus, why won't you come play with us? I dropped the phone, could hear the voice still talking from the floor. We've been trying so hard to show you. The grass is so green down here, so soft. You'd like it. We all do. I grabbed the phone, ended the call. It rang again immediately. Different number. I let it go to voicemail. When I played the message, it was the same voice, but this time there were others in the background. Children laughing, playing, and underneath it all, a sound like fingernails scratching at wood. We're going to keep trying, Marcus. Every night at playtime. 3:33. That's when the veil is thinnest. That's when we can almost reach you, but you keep fighting. Why do you keep fighting? Don't you want friends? The message ended. I looked at my hands. The stains were spreading up my arms now. Grass-green veins under my skin, pulsing with each heartbeat. They weren't trying to pull me down to play. They were trying to pull me down to stay. I stopped sleeping entirely. 5 days in, I was hallucinating. Shadow children in my peripheral vision. The sound of playground games echoing from the air vents. Ring Around the Rosie, Red Rover, Hide and Seek. Ready or not, I'd hear whispered from my bathroom. Here we come. Mrs. Chen stopped knocking. The super called twice about complaints. Strange noises from my apartment. Running, jumping, playing, but I wasn't doing any of that. I was sitting in my kitchen, eyes propped open with toothpicks, mainlining espresso and watching my hands slowly turn green. Derek fired me on day 7, said I'd missed too many meetings, hadn't turned in any work. I laughed when he told me, laughed until I cried. Work, like spreadsheets, mattered when dead children were trying to drag me into their eternal playground. On day 8, I cracked. It started with acceptance. They were going to get me eventually. I could feel my body breaking down, my mind unraveling. The grass stains had spread to my chest now, my neck. I looked like I was turning into a plant, becoming one with their cemetery garden. So I decided to meet them on my own terms. At 3:30 a.m., 3 minutes before their playtime, I walked down to the basement. The door was already open, waiting. The wall, where I'd left handprints, had changed. The concrete had crumbled away, revealing soil underneath. Rich, dark earth that smelled like spring. Like growth, like death and rebirth all at once. I pressed my hands against it, felt those other fingers intertwine with mine. Finally, the voices whispered, finally, you're ready to play. The soil parted like water. I stepped through. I was in a field. But not really. It was the idea of a field, the memory of one. Grass that was too green, too perfect. Sky that couldn't decide if it was day or night. And everywhere, children. They looked normal at first glance. Playing tag, laughing, running through the eternal grass. But when they turned to look at me, I saw the truth. Hollow eyes. Skin like old paper. Clothes from a different century, rotted and wrong. New friend, they shrieked in unison. New friend comes to play. They swarmed me. Cold hands grabbing, pulling, dragging me down to the grass. And I understood then. Understood why the stains. Why the dirt. This was their game, had always been their game. They'd been buried in wooden boxes that rotted. Buried in ground that was moved, disturbed, built over. They'd been forgotten. Lost. So they made their own place, their own field, and they pulled in playmates whenever they could. Play with us, they sang. Play forever and ever and ever. I felt myself sinking into the grass. It was soft, so soft. Easy to just let go, to join them, to play their endless games in their endless field. But then I remembered something. Something from the old photograph. The headstone. They sleep but dream of playing in fields eternal. Sleep, they were sleeping. This was their dream. And if it was a dream, maybe I could wake them up. You're sleeping, I screamed, fighting against their grip. You're all asleep. This isn't real. The children paused, tilted their heads in unison like broken dolls. Sleep? One asked. What's sleep? You died, I said, my voice cracking. In 1823, scarlet fever, you were buried in Manning Cemetery, but you're not there anymore. They moved you, moved your bodies. You're lost. The field flickered. For a moment I saw the truth underneath. Not grass, but concrete. Not sky, but the basement ceiling. Not children, but shadows. Memories. Echoes of loss. We're lost? The lead child, a girl with pigtails and a rotted dress, looked confused. But we're playing. We're always playing. Because you don't know how to stop, I whispered. Because no one told you it was okay to rest. To really rest. The field was fading now. The children were becoming transparent. And for the first time in however long they'd been trapped here, they looked tired. I'm sleepy, the girl said. Are you sleepy too? One by one, they lay down in the grass that wasn't grass. Closed their eyes that weren't eyes. And as they did, they whispered, Thank you for playing with us. Thank you for finding us. Thank you for... They faded away. I woke up in the hospital. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, exhaustion. The doctors said I'd been found in the basement of my building, unconscious, covered in dirt. Said I was lucky to be alive. I didn't tell them about the children, about the field, about any of it. But I know it was real, because when they released me, when I went back to pack up my apartment, the building manager pulled me aside. "Strangest thing," he said. "That wall in the basement, the one well, where we found you. We had to repair it, and behind the concrete we found bones, old ones. City's archaeological department says they're from the 1800s. Children's bones. Must have been missed when they moved that old cemetery." He shook his head. "They're giving them a proper burial now. All 27 of them. Imagine that. Lost all this time." I moved out that day. Found a new place in Brooklyn. Ground floor, no basement, no history. The grass stains never came back. But sometimes on quiet nights I hear children laughing. Not the desperate, hollow laughter from that field, but real laughter, happy, free. And sometimes I find things on my pillow. Not cemetery flowers or dirt or grass. Dandelions. The kind children pick and blow to make wishes. I think their wishes finally came true. They finally got to really play, and then they got to rest. But I need to tell you what happened last week. What made me finally decide to share this story. I was at a coffee shop in Park Slope, working on my laptop, trying to rebuild my freelance career. Normal day, normal place, until I overheard the barista talking to her coworker. "It's the weirdest thing," she was saying. "Every morning for the past month I wake up with these green stains on my hands. My roommate thinks I'm sneaking out to Prospect Park at night, but I swear I'm not." My blood went cold. I looked up, caught her eye. "What's your address?" I asked, probably too urgently. She looked startled. "Why?" "Please, just..." "What building?" "The Monarch on Fifth Avenue. Why, do you know something about..." I was already pulling up property records on my phone. The Monarch, built 2003. But before that, Greenwood Cemetery expansion, 1850s. Relocated 2001 for development. "You need to move," I told her. "Now, today if you can." She laughed nervously. "Okay, crazy customer alert. Tom, can you listen to me?" I showed her my hands. Faint scars where the grass stains had gone deepest, where the green had almost taken over. I had the same thing happen, same stains, same everything. It's not sleepwalking. They're trying to take you somewhere, to keep you... I told her everything. Right there in the coffee shop, with her coworker Tom giving me looks like I'd lost my mind. But she listened. Her face got paler with every detail. The footprints," she whispered. "You had those too, the small ones?" I nodded. "And the phone calls. The children asking to play, yes." She quit her job that day, moved back in with her parents in New Jersey, sent me a message a week later. "No more stains, thank you. But here's what really haunts me. What made me realize I had to warn more people. I kept researching, kept digging into old cemetery records, relocation documents, development permits. Do you know how many buildings in New York are built on former burial grounds? Not just the famous ones, not just the historic ones, hundreds. Apartment complexes, office buildings, schools. I found a report from PS 244 in Queens. 12 students in the same class reporting grass stains to the school nurse. The teacher noting they all seemed tired, distracted. The principal requesting environmental testing for possible mold issues. The school was built on the site of Calvary Cemetery's old children's section. I tried to contact them, sent emails, made calls, no response. The reports stopped appearing after winter break. When spring came, the local news ran a feel-good story about the school's new memorial garden. Honoring the past, the headline read. 27 flowering trees. One for each child they'd found when they dug up the playground for renovation. 27, always 27. I've started a blog, a database tracking every report I can find, every Reddit post, every local news story, every whispered conversation in coffee shops and bars. The patterns are there if you look. always starts with grass stains, always in buildings over forgotten graves, always pulls strongest at 3:33 a.m., always involves children who died too young, always 27 or multiples of 27, and always, they just want someone to play with. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing that makes me check my hands every morning, just in case. There are more buildings in New York built on old cemeteries, more forgotten graves, more lost children, and I wonder, how many other people are waking up with grass stains? How many others are being invited to play? How many don't figure it out in time? So, before you go to sleep tonight, check your hands. Check your feet. And if you see even a hint of green, even a speck of dirt, maybe look up the history of your building. Maybe look up what's buried beneath. Or maybe, just maybe, it's already too late. Sweet dreams. Did that give you chills? Because I'm still finding grass stains, and I live in a desert now. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced anything similar. Like and subscribe if you want more true stories. And remember, 3:33 comes every night, every single night. Story number 4. They found my boarding pass in seat 23A, but I was never on that plane. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. Because if I was on flight 447 from Denver to Portland that night, then I need to explain why half the passengers vanished mid-flight, and why I can't remember anything between takeoff and waking up in my apartment 3 days later. But here's the thing that makes my skin crawl. I still have the coffee stain on my shirt from the turbulence. The same stain the flight attendant apologized for. The one who's now missing. If you're watching this late at night, maybe turn on another light. Because what I'm about to tell you might make you question every flight you've ever taken. And before I start this story, I need you to know something. Everything I'm about to share is true. The news buried it. The airline paid people off, but 57 passengers disappeared at 30,000 feet. And I think I know why. The story begins now. I'd taken the Denver to Portland red-eye dozens of times for work. Same airline, same route, sometimes even the same crew. That Tuesday in October started like any other business trip. Rushed packing, terrible airport food, and the familiar weight of exhaustion that comes with quarterly sales meetings. The departure board showed on time, 11:47 p.m. Gate C-23. I remember thinking the gate area felt emptier than usual. Red-eyes were never packed. But this felt different. Maybe 40 people scattered across those uncomfortable vinyl seats, all buried in phones or laptops, nobody making eye contact. The overhead fluorescents hummed that specific frequency that made everything feel slightly unreal. Now boarding Group A for flight 447 to Portland. The gate agent's voice crackled through the speaker. Sarah. I knew her name because I'd seen her almost every trip. Bright red lipstick, always smiled even at midnight. But that night, her smile looked forced, like someone had painted it on. I shuffled forward with my Group B boarding pass. The jet bridge felt longer than usual. Each step echoed weird, hollow, like walking through a tunnel made of tin. The plane door yawned open, and that familiar smell hit me. Recycled air mixed with cleaning chemicals and something else. Something that made my stomach turn just slightly. Welcome aboard. The flight attendant. A woman maybe mid-30s with auburn hair pulled back tight. Held out her hand for my boarding pass. Her name tag read Melissa. 23A, window seat. Straight back on your left. I nodded. Made my way down the narrow aisle. The passengers already seated looked, tired isn't the right word, drained. Like someone had pulled something vital out of them and left the shells behind. This guy in 14C just stared straight ahead, not blinking. A woman across from him had her tray table down, tracing patterns on it with her finger. over and over, the same shape. My row was empty. Small miracles. I shoved my carry-on in the overhead bin and settled in, pulling out my phone to text my wife. Boarding now, see you tomorrow afternoon, love you. The message wouldn't send. No signal. I figured it was just the usual pre-flight dead zone and pocketed my phone. More passengers trickled on. A businessman in an expensive suit took 23C, leaving the middle seat empty between us. He smelled like cologne and whiskey, already loosening his tie before sitting down. "Long day?" I offered. He glanced at me. His eyes looked wrong, the pupils too large for the cabin lighting. "Every day's long when you can't sleep." Before I could respond, he'd already turned away, pulling out one of those fancy noise-canceling headphones. The captain's voice came over the intercom, smooth and professional. "Good evening, folks. This is Captain Morrison. We're expecting a smooth flight to Portland tonight. Flight time of 2 hours and 23 minutes. We'll be cruising at 35,000 feet. Weather looks good all the way. Sit back, relax, and we'll have you there before you know it." Standard script. I'd heard it 100 times. But something in his voice, a slight tremor on the word relax, like he was trying to convince himself too. The safety demonstration started. Melissa and another flight attendant went through the motions. But I noticed Melissa's hands shaking as she held up the oxygen mask. Just slightly. Probably nobody else saw it. But I did. The plane pushed back from the gate. That familiar sensation of rolling backward while facing forward always made me a little queasy outside my window. The airport lights blurred past. Orange sodium lamps creating halos in the light fog. We taxied forever. Or maybe it just felt that way. The businessman beside me had his eyes closed, but I could tell he wasn't sleeping. His jaw kept clenching, unclenching. A muscle in his neck twitching to some unheard rhythm. Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff. The engines roared to life, that powerful push back into the seat as we accelerated down the runway. I watched the ground lights streak by faster, faster, until that magical moment when the wheels left the ground and everything went smooth. And Denver fell away below us. A sprawling constellation of lights that dimmed as we climbed through the cloud layer. I always loved this part, the transition from earth to sky, from the mundane to something almost otherworldly. But that night, the clouds looked different, thicker, almost solid, like we were flying through cotton soaked in ink. No stars visible above, just black. The seatbelt sign dinged off. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Feel free to move about the cabin." Nobody moved. I looked around. Every passenger I could see from my seat sat perfectly still. Not reading. Not watching the little TV screens. Just sitting. The businessman beside me still had his eyes closed, but his breathing was too regular, too controlled. Something felt wrong. Not emergency wrong, not "we're going to crash" wrong, but wrong like when you walk into a room and everyone stops talking. Wrong like when you wake up and know someone's been in your house. That kind of wrong. I unbuckled my seatbelt, stood up. "Can I get you something?" Melissa appeared beside me so fast I actually jumped. Her smile was professional, but her eyes... God, her eyes looked terrified. "Just need to use the restroom." "Of course. Right behind you." I squeezed past the businessman. He didn't move, didn't even shift his legs. I had to basically climb over him. His hand was gripping the armrest so tight his knuckles were white. The aisle stretched before me. Row after row of passengers, all sitting with that same unnatural stillness. A kid in 18B couldn't have been more than 12. Stared straight ahead with his mouth slightly open. His mom beside him had her hands folded in her lap, looking down at nothing. The bathroom was occupied. I waited, trying not to look at the passengers, trying not to notice how quiet it was. No conversation, no movie sounds, no crying babies. Just the drone of the engines and the whisper of recycled air. The bathroom door opened. An elderly woman emerged, moved past me without making eye contact. I watched her walk back to her seat. 15D. She sat down and immediately went still, like someone had flipped a switch. Inside the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face. The mirror showed me looking haggard, pale. When had I gotten so pale? The fluorescent light flickered. Just once, in that split second of darkness, I swear I saw something else in the mirror, standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. Just the tiny bathroom walls. Get it together, I told myself. It's just a weird flight. Everyone's tired, you're imagining things. But when I opened the bathroom door, the plane had changed. The lights were dimmer. Not off, just muted. Like someone had thrown a gray filter over everything, and the passengers. Half of them were gone. I stood frozen in the bathroom doorway, blinking hard, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The businessman who'd been sitting next to me, gone. His expensive headphones still on the seat, still playing something. I could hear the tinny whisper of music leaking out. The kid in 18B gone. But his mom still sat there, hands folded, looking down at nothing. Every other passenger had simply vanished. No signs of struggle, no scattered belongings, just empty seats where people had been sitting 30 seconds ago. My legs felt like water, but I forced myself to walk back to my row. The aisle seemed to stretch forever. My footsteps completely silent on the carpet. As I passed each row, I counted, empty, occupied, a perfect pattern. Like someone had selected every other person and just deleted them. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that nobody seemed to notice. The remaining passengers sat exactly as they had before. Same positions, same blank stares. The woman in 15D hadn't moved a muscle. The mom in 18C still looked down at her folded hands, even though her son had vanished from the seat beside her. I reached my row, slid past the empty seat where the businessman had been. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely buckle my seatbelt. Think. There had to be an explanation. Maybe they'd moved to different seats. Maybe I was having some kind of episode, altitude sickness, hallucination, something. I pressed the call button. Nothing happened. Pressed it again. The little light wouldn't even turn on. Where was the crew? I hadn't seen Melissa or any other flight attendant since I'd gone to the bathroom. The galley curtains were drawn. No movement behind them. I unbuckled again. Started to stand. Please remain seated. The voice came over the intercom. But it wasn't the captain. Wasn't anyone who sounded human. It was, how do I even describe it? Like someone had taken a normal voice and stretched it. Pulled it through something that made it wrong. Not robotic. Worse than robotic. Empty. We are experiencing minor turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened. But there was no turbulence. The plane flew smooth as glass. I sat back down, every instinct screaming at me to do something, anything. But what? Start yelling? Demand answers from passengers who wouldn't even look at me. Try to break into the cockpit? Outside my window, nothing but black. No stars, no ground lights, no wing lights blinking. Just void. That's when I noticed the drink. On the businessman's tray table, which I swear hadn't been down before, sat a glass of whiskey. Ice cubes still fresh. Condensation beating on the glass, like someone had just poured it. I reached over, touched the glass. Real. Cold. The ice clinked softly. Movement caught my eye. The woman in 22B across the aisle and one row up lifted a glass of red wine to her lips, took a sip, set it down. But her eyes never moved, never blinked. Like her body was acting out some programmed routine while her mind was elsewhere. More drinks appeared. I watched it happen. Not materialized, not magic. Flight attendants were serving them. But wrong flight attendants. They moved down the aisles with drink carts, placing beverages on tray tables. But they moved. weird, mechanical, and their faces. I only got a glimpse of one as she passed. But I wished I hadn't. It looked like someone had taken a normal face and smoothed it out. Features still there, but softened, blurred, like looking at someone through frosted glass, and the smile. The smile was painted on. Literal paint. Bright red against too pale skin. She placed a cup of coffee on my tray table. I hadn't asked for coffee. The liquid was black, with an oily sheen on top that swirled in patterns that hurt to look at. "Drink," she said. That same stretched voice from the intercom. I shook my head. She stood there, waiting. Other passengers were lifting their drinks, sipping in unison. The synchronized motion made my skin crawl. "I'm not thirsty." Her painted smile didn't change, but something shifted behind those blurred features. A ripple of displeasure? Anger? Something that made my mouth go dry. Drink, firmer this time. I picked up the cup, pretended to sip. The smell alone made my eyes water. Like coffee mixed with something chemical. Something that belonged in a lab, not a kitchen. She moved on, satisfied with my performance. The plane droned on through the black. I kept the cup in my hands. Occasionally fake sipping whenever one of those things passed by. Around me, the remaining passengers drank their beverages in perfect rhythm. Lift, sip, lower. Wait exactly 10 seconds. Repeat. My phone was dead. Not powered off. Dead. Screen wouldn't even light up. My watch had stopped at 12:23 a.m., exactly 36 minutes after takeoff. Time felt elastic. Minutes or hours could have passed. No way to tell. The captain never came back on. No announcements about descent or arrival. Just the endless drone of engines and the rhythmic drinking of the passengers. I started to notice other details. The emergency exit signs had changed. Still red, still glowing, but the running figure looked different, distorted, like it was running from something instead of toward something. The air grew thicker, not harder to breathe, just heavier, like breathing soup and cold. So cold, I could see my breath. But none of the other passengers seemed to notice. They just kept drinking, lifting those glasses with mechanical precision. Then I saw her, in the reflection of my window. Melissa stood in the aisle beside me. But when I turned to look, nothing there, just empty space. I looked back at the window. There she was, standing perfectly still. Her uniform was wrong, too dark, like it had been soaked in something. And her face, half of it was missing. Not injured, just not there. A blank space where features should be. She raised a finger to where her lips should have been. The universal sign for silence. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. In the reflection. She leaned down, whispered something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read what those half lips were saying. "They're coming back for the rest." When I blinked, she was gone. The plane suddenly shuddered. Not turbulence, something else, like flying through a membrane. The lights flickered, went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in that sick red glow. And in that red light, I saw them. The empty seats weren't empty anymore. They weren't people. I need you to understand that. Whatever sat in those previously empty seats, they weren't the missing passengers. They were something else wearing the idea of human form. The businessman's seat now held a figure in the same expensive suit, but the proportions were wrong. Arms too long, torso too short, and the face. Imagine someone describing a human face to something that had never seen one. Then that thing trying to recreate it from memory. Features in approximately the right places, but fundamentally wrong. It turned to look at me. The movement too smooth, like its neck was on a swivel, where eyes should have been. Just smooth skin, but I could feel it seeing me anyway. "You didn't drink." Its voice came from somewhere near where a mouth should be, but the lips didn't move. just a slit that opened and closed out of sync with the words. I gripped my armrest, heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. I'm not thirsty. Thirsty. It repeated the word like tasting it. Thirst, thir-sti. Each iteration more distorted, more wrong. Human concept, biological need. We studied this. We. I looked around. Every empty seat now filled with these things, all different, all wrong. A child-shaped thing in 18B that was too tall, folded into the seat like a spider. A woman thing in 15A with hands that had too many joints. All of them moving slightly, adjusting. Like they were still figuring out how to work their borrowed forms. The real passengers, the ones who'd remained, still sat frozen. Still drinking in that horrible rhythm. But now I understood. They weren't drinking by choice. They were being made to drink. Controlled. And whatever was in those cups, you were selected, the businessman thing continued. Marked, tagged, like the others. Selected for what? It tilted its head, a full 90 degrees. Neck bones, if it had bones, crackling like kindling. Transit exchange, your kind calls it trade. Trade. The word made my blood run cold. Half for half. A new voice, the child thing in 18B. Its voice was high, sing-song, but underneath was something ancient. We take half, leave half. Fair exchange, always fair. Been doing it so long. So many flights, so many trades. I thought about all the planes that had gone missing over the years. All the mysterious disappearances. How many had been explained away? How many had been covered up? But you didn't drink. The businessman thing leaned closer. Its breath smelled like ozone and old meat. That makes you complicated. The plane shuddered again. That same membrane sensation. The red emergency lights flickered, went out. Darkness for 3 heartbeats. Then normal cabin lighting returned. The things were gone, but the passengers they'd replaced were back. The businessman sat beside me, headphones on, eyes closed. The child in 18B stared straight ahead, all of them exactly as they'd been before, like nothing had happened, except they were different. Subtle, but different. The businessman's breathing was too regular, mechanical. The child blinked in perfect intervals, every 3 seconds exactly, and when the woman in 15D turned her head, I swear I heard that same kindling crackle. Ladies and gentlemen, the captain's voice, normal, human. We're beginning our descent into Portland. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Descent? We'd been flying for... I had no idea how long we'd been flying. My watch still read 12:23. Outside my window, city lights appeared. Portland spread out below us. Normal. Real. The wing lights blinked red and white. Everything exactly as it should be. But I knew better. I watched the businessman beside me, counted his breaths. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Perfect. Too perfect. And his hands, when he adjusted his headphones. His fingers bent in ways fingers shouldn't bend. The plane descended through wispy clouds. The landing gear deployed with a familiar thunk around me. Passengers began stirring, gathering belongings, acting out the pantomime of normal travelers. But their movements were just slightly off, like watching a play where none of the actors quite knew their roles. We touched down smooth, taxied to the gate. The seatbelt sign dinged off. Welcome to Portland. Local time is 2:47 a.m. Thank you for flying with us tonight. I stayed in my seat, watching. The replaced passengers stood, retrieved bags, filed off the plane. The businessman beside me packed up his headphones, straightened his tie, gave me a smile that spread too wide across his face. Have a good night. His voice sounded almost right. Almost. I waited until most had deplaned, then grabbed my carry-on and made my way to the exit. Melissa stood by the door. The real Melissa? The thing pretending to be Melissa? I couldn't tell anymore. Thank you for flying with us." Her smile looked painted on, but then again, maybe it always had. I stumbled off the plane, up the jet bridge, into the terminal. Portland Airport at 3 a.m. was mostly empty. A few travelers slumped in chairs. A janitor pushing a mop bucket. All of them could be real. None of them could be real. No way to know. I found my car in long-term parking. Drove home in a daze. The streets empty except for the occasional car. In each one, I wondered. Real person or replacement? How many trades had there been? How many flights? How many people walking around weren't people at all? My apartment was dark, cold. I flipped on every light, checked every room. Nothing out of place. Everything exactly as I'd left it. Except for my shirt. The coffee stain was there, right where Melissa had spilled it during the turbulence. The turbulence that had never happened. On the flight where I'd refused to drink, I stripped off the shirt, threw it in the trash, then pulled it back out. Evidence of what? Who would believe me? I didn't sleep that night, or the next, or the next. 3 days later, the news broke. Flight 447 had landed in Portland with half its passengers missing. 57 people. Gone. The airline claimed mechanical issues, pressurization problems, emergency landing. All passengers safe and accounted for. Lies. I searched for passenger lists, news reports, anything, but within hours, everything was scrubbed. The flight number changed in the system, like Flight 447 had never existed. But I knew, and worse, I knew they knew I knew. It's been 3 months since that flight. 3 months of looking over my shoulder, of studying every person I meet, watching for those subtle wrong movements, listening for that kindling crackle when they turn their heads. I quit my job, couldn't handle the flying anymore. My wife thinks it's stress. Burnout. She doesn't know about the shirt, about what I saw. How could I tell her? How could I explain that half the people we pass on the street might not be people at all? But last week, something changed. I was at the grocery store, normal Tuesday afternoon, picking up milk and bread when I saw him. The businessman from seat 23C, same expensive suit, same leather briefcase. He was studying a can of soup like he'd never seen one before, rotating it slowly, reading every word on the label. I ducked behind an end cap, watched him through the gaps between cereal boxes. An elderly woman approached him. "Excuse me, could you reach that top shelf for me?" He turned. That smooth, swivel motion. Smiled, that too wide smile. Reached up, his arm extended farther than it should have, joints bending in extra places. But the woman didn't notice, or didn't care. Just thanked him and shuffled away with her can of green beans. He went back to studying his soup. I abandoned my cart, started to leave, but as I passed the checkout lanes, I saw her, Melissa, working register 3, same auburn hair pulled back tight, same name tag, same smile. She was scanning items for a young couple, moving with that mechanical precision, beep, bag, the couple chatted about weekend plans. Normal, human, oblivious. I got in her line, had to know, had to see up close. When my turn came, she looked right at me, no recognition, just that painted-on smile. "Find everything okay today?" I nodded, watched her scan my items. Her movements were perfect, too perfect, and when she reached for the bread, I saw it, just for a second. Her hand glitched, like a video skipping frames. There. Not there. There again. "That'll be $12.47. I paid cash as she counted my change. She leaned forward, whispered so only I could hear, "You should have drunk the coffee." My blood turned to ice, but when I looked at her face, just that same vacant smile, like she'd never spoken at all. I took my change, my bags, walked out on legs that felt like jelly, in the parking lot. I looked back. She was still there, scanning items. That same mechanical rhythm. They're everywhere now, or maybe they always were, and I just couldn't see them before. The barista at my coffee shop who makes every drink exactly the same temperature. The bus driver who takes every turn at exactly the same speed. The jogger who passes my apartment at exactly 6:47 every morning. Rain or shine. I started a journal, documenting every encounter, every glitch, every impossible thing I see. But even that feels useless. Who would believe me? Who could I trust? Anyone could be one of them. Everyone could be one of them. And then, yesterday, I found the note. Slipped under my apartment door, no envelope, just a piece of paper with a single line in handwriting that looked almost human. The next trade is December 15th. Flight 893, Denver to Seattle. That's 6 days from now. I shouldn't care. I don't fly anymore. It's not my problem. But I can't stop thinking about those 57 people. Where did they go? What happened to them? And the ones who came back, are they suffering? Are they trapped somewhere inside those wrong bodies? Or are they gone forever? Replaced by things that pretend to be human but will never quite get it right. I've made my decision. I'm going to be on that flight. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this is all some elaborate breakdown. And I'll get to Seattle perfectly normal with all passengers accounted for. But I don't think so. I think they want me there. I think that note was an invitation. Or a warning. Or both. I bought my ticket this morning. Seat 23A, same as before. The booking website glitched 3 times before it went through. Each time showing me a different price. $247. $667, $13, finally settled on $893. The same as the flight number. They know I'm coming. But here's the thing, and this is why I'm recording this. Uploading it. Hoping someone, anyone, will see it before they scrub it from the internet like they did with Flight 447. I don't think I'm special. I don't think I was the only one who didn't drink that night. I think there are others. People who've seen what I've seen. Who know what I know. Who've watched their friends and family replaced by things that almost pass for human. If you're watching this, if any of this sounds familiar, if you've noticed the glitches, the wrong movements, the people who aren't quite people, you're not crazy, they're real, they're here, and they're trading us away. Flight by flight, half by half, until there's nothing left but things wearing our faces, living our lives, and nobody will even notice we're gone. I board in 6 days. If I don't upload another video by December 16th, you'll know what happened, you'll know the trade continues, and maybe, just maybe, you'll know to look for the signs, to watch the people around you, to never, ever drink what they offer you at 35,000 feet. But honestly, sometimes I wonder if it would have been easier to just drink the coffee, to let them take me in that first trade, because seeing them everywhere, living with the constant fear that anyone could be one of them. Sometimes I think the ones who disappeared might be the lucky ones. They don't have to watch the world slowly fill with things that pretend to be us. They don't have to wonder if their wife's kiss feels different, if their child's laugh sounds wrong, if the person looking back from the mirror is really them at all. 6 days, Flight 893. If you never hear from me again, don't trust anyone who flies at night. Don't trust the crew that smiles too wide. And whatever you do, don't drink anything. They're watching this. I know they are. They watch everything now. But I don't care anymore. Someone needs to know. Someone needs to remember. Remember that we were real. Remember that we were human. Remember us before they replace us all. Are you still watching? Good, because I need to tell you one more thing, the most important thing. Check your shirt right now. Check for stains that shouldn't be there. Marks from drinks you don't remember spilling. Because I don't think I was supposed to remember either. I think something went wrong with my trade. A glitch in whatever process they use. And if you have a stain you can't explain, a mark from a moment that never happened, then you're like me. You've been on one of their flights. You just don't remember it. Which means they're coming back for you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. They always come back to fix their mistakes. So ask yourself, when's the last time you flew at night? And more importantly, can you really remember the whole flight? Or are there gaps, missing hours, moments that feel more like dreams than memories? Check your shirt, check your boarding passes, check the timestamps on your phone from your last trip, because I'm starting to think Flight 447 wasn't my first trade. I think it was just the first one where I woke up. Sweet dreams and safe travels.